Hey friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and we've got a little knife today. Well, it's not short, but it's a little knife. Micarta and a steel that I've never had on a knife before. This is DC53, or is it 35? 53. DC53. It is D2 upgraded. It's D2 that's been made tougher and more durable, more edge retention, which is pretty good because D2's got pretty good durability and edge retention as it is already. So not a stainless steel. We've got a titanium pocket clip, micarta handle scales. It's a liner lock. There you go. Now that's focused. We've got a straight back blade. A nice clip on there. Decent shape on this knife. I think you might like it because it's only $39.99 at White Mountain Knives. Take off 10% with coupon code CCE. That's $35.99. A $36 front flipper or end flipper, whatever you want to call it, with a steel that's, pretty good. I am tired of D2, but, this is better than D2. It's also known as D2 Supreme. If you've heard of D2 Supreme, this is pretty much the same composition as that is competition. In my review videos, I do a teardown, I do complete measurements, and not just copied off some website. I do all the measurements myself using precision measuring equipment. I show you how it's constructed, and I only allow YouTube to interrupt the video once with a commercial break for your viewing pleasure. So stick around, you're going to want to see this one. Keep watching. All right, the first thing we're going to do is a size comparison. There is the Ontario Rat 1. It's a smaller knife. It looks a lot smaller, but it isn't really an awful lot smaller. Cutting edge, very similar to the Rat 1, but it is a smaller knife in every other measurement. It's bigger than, say, the Sanren Mu 7010 that I've been showing with some knives lately. It's got that nice thin look to it. It looks like a gentleman's folder. We've got a straight back. It's got a rounded spine all the way along. We've got a swedge along most of it and a very pointy tip here, a shallow belly, and then about half the blade is straight. So the tip of that blade, it's designed for piercing. If you just think about the blade itself, it works great for piercing. It's good for slicing, okay for cutting. It's not a great cutting. By cutting, I mean if you've got something and you're just going to go straight down into it. You don't do that to a camera lens though. That's cutting. And the reason for that is, while it's not thick behind the grind, it gets to the full thickness of the blade really quick. It's a fairly shallow knife this way. And so like if I'm cutting through an apple, it's just going to snap the apple. It cuts for a while and then the thickness of the blade just snaps the rest of the apple, unless it's a very soft apple or something. But it cuts okay. If you're looking for a knife of this kind of shape, you could do worse by a long ways. You've got a nice long flat section, very easy to clamp it on a sharpening system to resharpen it, and you probably will want to resharpen it. It came super sharp, like the apex of the edge is sharp, but the grind angles are not that good from the factory on this guy, unfortunately. Sharpener's toil, it's ideal. I really like this sharpener's toil. You know how I've got a rounded spine? Well, it's rounded on this side too, and it's even rounded inside that sharpener's toil. And it comes past the plunge, so it's easy to sharpen this thing without messing up and scratching up the plunge area, so that's very good. It's a decent blade shape. I quite like it. We've got a little bit of jimping up here when the knife is open. It's not that grippy though. I would like more jimping you know, the full length of the wide part just before the swedge. I would have liked if that jimping went all the way along there. Because we've got, I believe, ceramic ball bearings in here. It's just very smooth. It wasn't this smooth before. I had to re-record this intro section, this main section here, I should say, because once I put it into my computer, the audio was just nasty on that section. Like, my camera's got a few problems. I'm probably going to have to send it in for warranty work, but we'll see. Because I'm having to re-record quite often. And it's okay. We've got alignment. Right now, it's perfect. But before I changed, I took it apart and I cleaned it all up. I re-lubricated it with, you know about my lubrication that I like. Links down below the video for that. You know, it had a light grease in there, and so the action was pretty good. But when it was tightened up enough that there was not blade play, but not so much that it was restricting the motion, it was not aligned. It was off to this side a bit, the show side. And now it's right down the middle after I cleaned it all up, re-lubed it, and put lighter oil in, re-tightened it up. No blade play side to side, no lock rock anyway. That's good. Lockup is exactly where I like it to be on a brand new knife. So that's really good. You've got a little bit of a swedge here with some jimping in it for the lock release. It's no higher than the rest. You know, the sides are pretty much parallel, but it's easy to get your thumb in there and disengage that lock. So easily done. Right or left-handed. In fact, with my left hand, I find it a little bit easier to disengage the lock than I do even with the right. Well, I did grow up left-handed, so that's good stuff. Everything around the pivot and stuff, lockup, it's good. The handle, we've got micarta. We've got it in this brown, a light sandy baby poop brown color. Although I actually like this color. Or you get it in OD green micarta. Now, the micarta is somewhat polished. It's flat on the edge, and then we've got a cove cut out along the spine and a cove cut out along the belly. And then the handle scales are screwed in right in the middle. These are T8 screws. And that one T8 screw is beneath the pocket clip. And then you've got your pocket clip there. It's in there with T6 screws. And now, since I have already taken it apart, you don't see it yet, but you'll see it soon. These screws are all really good quality screws, even the T6 screws. So that's a good thing. Functionality, the pocket clip, it climbs over because it's got a nice end to it. A very typical clip. It's titanium, I believe. And it goes in there, and you got a little bit of the knife sticking out. Not a lot. Got that nice light titanium color look on it. I very much like that pocket clip. It's very functional. No lanyard hole. For those of you who want that, sorry. G10 backspacer. Looks nice. It's functional. It's quite okay. It's a decent knife in my book. There's no protection. If you do plunge your knife into something and it suddenly stops, your hand can easily slide over. That is one thing you're not going to want to use this knife for, stabbing into anything unless you know exactly what you're doing. Even into something as thick as a milk jug, it can stop, and my hand almost slid forward when I did that. So you have to be careful that way. I quite like it. By the way, I haven't said the name of this knife yet. It's the VAZO. V-A-Z-O, or in American English, V-A-Z-O. And it's quite nice. It should sell well. The price only $39.95 after discount $35.99. How much? 48 Canadian, something like that? That's really, really nice. I like that an awful lot. So now let's take the thing apart, and I'll show you what I found. Here it is most of the way apart. The body screws back here were T8s, good quality. The screws for the pocket clip are fairly long. They're quite nice, good quality. The screw heads are nice and deep. And that's what it looks like when it's just not yet fully taken apart. We've got that captured stop pin there. You can see all that skeletonizing there. So let's get the pressure off of that liner. Oh, there's another screw right there. Yeah, that's a pretty good screw. It's not going to strip out easily. And there we go. We've got ceramic ball bearings in there. We've got a ceramic detent right there. Now let's see if there's anything. Yes, there's a notch on the micarta right there, or a raised section, and there's a notch here on the pin to stop it from spinning, but the pin is completely round. So it's a proper pin in terms of not being free spinning. Let me check one more thing. Yes, you can use it without the backspacer if you want, because we've got the steps right there so that the liners, when they go on, that's as far as they can go together. They can't go all the way together. So if you like open pillar construction, they're going to be just flat pins, but you can get rid of the backspacer if you want to. Let's go over the measurements. How heavy is this stuff? 73 grams, 2.55 ounces. So yeah, that skeletonizing paid off. The length of the cutting edge, 81.1 millimeters, 3.19 inches. Then the blade length, tip to the handle, 81.8 millimeters, 3.22 inches. The thickness of the blade, 3.24 millimeters, 0.1275 of an inch. So yeah, just over 1/8 of an inch. The blade depth, it is 17.5 millimeters. Oh yeah, it's about here is where it's widest, which is 0.689 of an inch. How thin is it behind the grind? 0.49 millimeters, 19.5 thousandths of an inch. Oh, I forgot to give the factory sharpness. 85 bes. So the edge is really sharp, and it's not too thick behind the grind, but the grind angles were affecting this knife, and fixing the grind angles is easy to do. You just sharpen it. On this side, it had an average of 21.5 degrees along the length. That's not terrible, but this side had an average of 25.8 degrees. Worse yet, this side had a variability along its length of 4.7 degrees change along that length of the cutting edge. So it will take a little bit of work to clean this thing up and get it the same angle all the way along on both sides. And since this is even better than D2, I think I'd do it 18 degrees per side, especially since this is like a light urban EDC gentleman's folder kind of knife. Back to the measurements. The handle length is 104.9 millimeters, 4.13 inches. The grip area, it's just a bit over 9.5 centimeters or 3 3/4 inches. So yeah, even big hands like mine can have a good grip on this knife. The thickness of the handle, measured on the micarta at the widest point, 14.33 millimeters. That's 0.564 of an inch. And being, this thin this way, which is in the grip area a maximum of 17.6 millimeters, which is 0.693 inches. Being thin this way, it's okay. Actually, I like it that it's over 1/2 of an inch thick this way. So that's good. When it's closed, the widest point is up here. The blade is just exposed a little bit, 18.5 millimeters, 0.728 of an inch. So under 3/4 of an inch space is what it takes to go into your pocket. So that's not bad. Oh, I forgot to do the inch measurement on this thing. The total length of this knife from tip to tail, 186.7 millimeters, and inches is on the screen right now how long this thing is. The proportions are okay. I kind of like, the length of the blade to the length of the handle. It's quite good. Let's go over what I think of this knife. It's a good knife. The main con on this thing is they did a poor job sharpening it. They did make the edge, when it was brand new, pretty sharp, but with the grind angle being as great as it is, yeah, it just didn't actually cut all that well. But it's okay. I didn't really have a problem with it. You can get this thing sharpened nicely. You just have to know what it is before you buy so that you'll be happy with your purchasing decision, right? Not every knife is right for every human. That's just the way it is. A couple things that I missed before. I didn't mention the pivot collar. There's a little pivot collar right in there on that side. And these screws, these T8 screws, they're very nice. I mentioned that, didn't I? Pocket clip, I like that. It's got a good hand feel, good lockup, decent action, especially now with the oil in there. The action's even better. It just flies out. The steel, actually, I'm not too bad with this steel. I quite like it. It's better than D2, but I'm getting tired of D2 on, having D2 on so many knives. But it is a pretty good steel. It's a budget gentleman's folder. You've got micarta and, a steel that's over 60 Rockwell. That's not bad. The cons, like I said before, if you are going to puncture something, there's no protection stopping your hand from sliding over, except for that tiny little bit of soft jimping there. So there's that. Right side only pocket clip. If you're a lefty and you want the left side pocket clip, sorry. If you want a lanyard hole, sorry. And I initially had the complaint that the alignment was off, but it's perfect now. So change the oil in your knives. I've got links down below for Amazon to get that oil if you don't want to spend an awful lot on your lubrication. So there you go, the Miguron VAZO. Thanks for watching my video. Thanks for sticking around and hanging around with me. I appreciate it very much. I'm most thankful for my supporters on Patreon and YouTube members. You guys are awesome. Thank you so very much. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Bye for now.